Welcome to the Healing Trauma Through Conscious Embodiment Summit, revealing your body's wisdom and utilizing creativity in healing. My name is Gregg Westwood, and I'm your host. My work depth integration integrates meditation, breath work, inquiry, journey work, and movement as conscious embodiment tools for healing. The purpose of this summit is to support participants who are searching for that deeper and longer lasting healing that conscious embodiment tools support. My intent is to educate, motivate, and inspire each of us into taking empowered steps in remembering who we truly are. I am so honored to introduce my next guest, Marianela Medrano. Marianela was born in the Dominican Republic and has lived in Connecticut since 1990. A poet and a writer of nonfiction and fiction, she holds a PhD in psychology. Her literary work has appeared in numerous anthologies and magazines in Latin America, Europe, and the United States. And her poetry has been translated into French and Italian. The topic of her presentation today is a mindful embodiment of writing. It's such an honor to have you here, Marianela. Welcome.
Thank you, Greg. It is an honor being here and just listening to what you're saying and feeling how many of your points are aligned with what I do makes my heart sing.
Mine too. So explain to us what embodiment mindful writing is.
Yes. So it's the combination. It's something I've been grappling with, I want to say, for the last 20 years of my life, using it at a personal level and then using it with other people. And it's the combination of embodied writing, which is an approach that was created by one of my professors at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, Rosemary Anderson. And I kind of adapted it to creative writing. So embodied or mindful writing, I fuse the two, I use it interchangeably, focuses on the present moment, using all of our senses without judgment of what we are trying to portray. And that's, if you think about, that's the definition that is most commonly used for mindfulness in general. So this kind of writing frees us from self-aversion because we're not judging, we are witnessing what is coming up for us. And it also provides a pathway to wholeness. In fact, there is a course I've been offering for the last 10 years that is a title, writing the pathways to wholeness. And I want to clarify, though, that wholeness includes all aspects of being human, not just the desirable, the positive, the darlings that we want to have in our lives, but it's the ability for us to capture in writing as things are emerging in our awareness, to capture that in the writing, the whole shebang, the whole thing, the sadness of being human, capturing from the here and now moment. So if we were to look at wholeness just as the positive, that will be making us incomplete, right?
Right.
And it will be kind of an attempt to perfection, which is unattainable. So mindful writing is writing in the moment with no judgment. And I don't know if you're familiar with the rain meditation. the recognizing what is in the moment, allowing and investigating, and then nurturing. So that also runs through embodied writing or mindful writing. That's in a nutshell what mindful or writing or embodied writing is.
Yeah, so when you're accessing and incorporating all sides of yourself, it sounds like it could be very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Yes,
speak to that?
absolutely. And the thing is, it is therapeutic in the sense that it uses all of our experiences and it kind of contextualizes them. So that's the therapeutic thing, that it brings things into context. And one of the things that I emphasize when I facilitate workshops is that we're not so much focusing on a content as we are focusing on depicting the self in context and what is happening inside of us and outside of us. So when we are able to capture that, the nuances of that, there is a freedom, there is a sense of a spaciousness that is created in us, and it also lends itself to that nurturing thing that I was talking before. So when we are able to name things, they see, you know how afraid we are of what we don't know, how afraid we are of the unknown. So when we are able to label things, to name things, there is an easiness, even if it is a traumatic event, right? It might be, sometimes it might stop us in our tracks, and there might be a lot of wobbleness and shakiness. But still, eventually there is that sense of, I got it. I know what it is, right? So the therapeutic end of this is that knowing, is that us eventually being able to speak from a place of knowing. Does that make sense?
Very much so.
Yeah.
So when you can you maybe describe how you work with your clients, like what a typical session might look like? Or
Yes, and I want to clarify, right, that I offer different sessions, but when people come to me because they want to do embodied writing or mindful writing, or they want for me to lean on the use of literature as a therapeutic means, this is when we do these things. There are people who come to me and they're not looking necessarily to do the writing. I must say that somehow, though, this informs the talk therapy. But to go back to your question, what I'm looking is I ordinarily offer a literary piece for to serve as a point of reference and to give the person something to hold on to, something, it's almost like a mirror, that the person can see their situation in that literary piece. It can be a poem, it can be a fragment of a story, it can be a song. And I presented to give the person, as I said, a mirror. And then I invite the person to look at what in that poem resonates with them. In embodied writing, Professor Anderson invites us to create what she calls a sympathetic resonance, so that when we express, that is going to resonate on the listener And there is going to be this two-way street happening, the meaning coming from me to the listener, right? In order to do that, we have to be able to depict things as vividly as possible. So we aim at creating vivid and true to life depictions of using all the senses of what we are trying to express. Then again, the aim is at helping the person bridge internal and external information, what's happening in the inside of the body and what's happening in the environment. And then, something that it's not easy to explain, but I tell people to play with it, is to write from the inside out, to see, using the body, using the wisdom of the body. And, I talk a lot about the three brains, the frontal cortex, where all the verbal and the language, the thinking happening, and then the limbic system, and then the reptilian brain. So bringing all these things together to help people kind of pinpoint where the experience that they're trying to depict is emanating from, is coming from. So then I invite them to slow down, to capture the nuances of the experience. So it's a lot of, there is a cadence, right, that we're seeking in the writing. So there is a lot of pausing. There is always that, a grounding practice before we start, tuning in the breath, because as you know, breath is the source and the beginning of all. And then attuning again, as I say, to the body, seeing what the body is remembering. And then writing in the first person and in the present tense, which we know elicits depth and volume of memories. It elicits a fluidity in the telling. So those are some of the points that I encourage and facilitate in a session. And, usually I guide through questions, but the beginning, again, is that literary piece that I bring to serve as the mirror in which the person can look at themselves and kind of find that resonance.
And is this approach effective with cross-culturally?
Yeah, that's a very good question. This the therapeutic uses of writing have been studied widely. Finally, we can say that there are many researches there, like, there is research in the mental health field, in journalism, even in law. There are studies on how to use writing. There is one particular study in law that is called Writing Lockdowns, a Path to Mindful Writing. So that's out there in the cyber world. And of course, the work of James Pennebaker with college students, and even the work of Rosemary Anderson. So all those things are out there, and I'm referring to the American culture. But your question about can we apply these interculturally? Yes. And there are also particular studies that are saying, in order for us to, especially in mindfulness, in order for us, the mindfulness that was disseminated in this country was really not taking into account before the experiences of the BIPOC populations, the Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. People have been looking at that and noticing that there are ways and that we cannot continue offering mindfulness as usual, that we have to look at the conditions, that we have to look at, that we have one of the things, the idea of inclusivity, the idea of representation. Who is teaching? Who is offering the mindfulness? So in the same way, in embodied writing, I take into account who am I bringing in that piece? Who's the poet? Who's the writer?
Right.
Is that person going to use a language that is going to invoke a resonance in the person? Because if I use someone who is depicting things that are far, far from the reality of the person I have in front of me, there is going to be a disconnect. And no one can write from this connection. So there has to be that sympathetic resonance has to be ignited by a language that is common, that elicits that common humanity, right? That the person feels seen, represented in that piece. So as long as individuals, facilitators keep that in mind, then yes, this is something, an approach that can be used across cultures. But we have to look at, the pieces and who wrote them and in what circumstances. And again, what I said before, what is the context? Context is so important.
Right. And what a creative process for the facilitators to try to find out which would be the best for their clients or the group or whatever.
Right. And I trained individuals to do this kind of work. And again, part of the work for me is to have a library that is diverse enough so I can work with just anyone who comes. Like I have students from all over the world. So I cannot just stay here looking at my navel, because then I wouldn't be able to assist them in really finding the representation and the inclusivity that they're gonna need to work wherever they are in the world. I have students, I don't have one right now, but I had students from India, from UK, and different parts of the world, and of course the Caribbean, and South America. So the realities are different, and that has to be taken into account.
Well, I know that we're just touching the very top of the iceberg with your work, but really, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, that this is a beautiful field that touches, so many intersections. There is social justice that is imbued here. It's part and parcel of the work that we do. There is the idea, even neurobiology here, how we cannot write from the head up, as Professor Anderson invited us, but from the neck down, to not leave the body. And it doesn't mean that, we don't use cognition, that we don't use the intellect, but that we have to marry, there has to be a marriage between mind, body, and spirit. So I guess my invitation is for people to approach to open themselves to this approach and to seek it out as an ally to help alleviate suffering in the world.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us today and for your beautiful presentation on creative embodied healing and just opening us up to the many possibilities that writing offers. And
Yes.
so we'll have a link to your website for participants who want to know more about your work and how you work with people, virtually these days. And I believe you're generously gifting participants who join your email list with a special gift. Do you want to take a moment and talk about that?
Yes. I, very regularly offer retreats in different venues, and I am offering a scholarship, a full scholarship for someone who wants to join the next one this year or next year. It's open to this year or 2023.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for offering that gift and for your depth, your wisdom, your creativity. It's been such a pleasure to sit here with you and to learn so much from you today. I just really appreciate it. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for capturing, as because you pointed out in your website the importance of acknowledging this multicultural awareness and wisdom. And thank you for creating a space where we can come and sample all these things. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. So thank you for watching today, and I hope you'll tune in to the other wonderful presenters here at the Healing Trauma Through Conscious Embodiment Summit. Thank you so much.